Right. Hello and welcome to the UK Open Live. You're joining us just as round one is getting underway. I'm Ewan. I'm joined here by John. Say hello to the people, John.
Hello, all you lovely people out there.
This is an exciting matchup we've got for you. We've got Prisma Ilya against Bang Dream.
Very true. All running what is the most up-to-date cards, as well as Ilya has had a recent power buff with all its lovely Phantasm cards.
Obviously have a fantastic choice of playmat from Brian, who's our player on the left.
Indeed, we have 3 levels of playmat here.
Absolutely maximum protection from the table. Don't want anything, any wood coming even close to these cards.
And there we go. Get a nice big zoom in on those mats. As you can see, we have big, small, and medium mats all lovely positioned there.
So we hope you guys are having a good weekend so far.
It's quite a chilly weekend, so be sure to wrap yourself all lovely. Have a nice warm cup of cocoa there. And let's head straight on in to the deck list that these guys are running. So let's jump into Brian here. He is running lovely Fate Ilya. So it's... As we go, he's running the new level 1 combo, so as it is, it's an experience 2. He gets to discard any card from his hand on the attack with the Pants Climax, and then he gets to look at the top 3 cards of his deck and scoop up any, or up to 3 of the cards in there that have either the Magic or the Phantasm trait. So he can go from either 1 card in his hand to an excess of 3, or even 0 if the luck does not get there for him.
Yeah, if you're an old head player, a combo like that does grind your gears a little bit, because no card should be a strict +2 like that. But that's the state of the game that we're at. That's the way that Bushiroads decided to take their game. And it's an incredibly strong combo. Don't want to slight the player for playing it.
Very true. I would absolutely love to play 3 of that, crash in, and scoop up 9 cards into my hand, and effectively you get to chop and change the best cards and discard what else you do not need at that time. It is absolutely ridiculous. And
as we look at other parts of the list, you'll see that non-selected plus doesn't matter so much, because we've got how many Akatsuki type effects in this list?
There is 6 from what I can comfortably see.
There's tons of filter in here, tons of utility, especially level 0, level 1. So, available anytime in the game, practically, giving you tons of selection, control over your hand and deck state. It's a well-rounded list.
It is indeed. It's got a lot of filter. It knows what to do, what to grab, and it's got the tools of which to grab it. Even if some of the older cards do not have the Phantasm trait, it does also work with the Magic, so it's able to, of course, synergize quite lovely and well right there, and culminating in like the new finisher, which allows him to perform these 2 actions where he can look at the top 2 cards of his opponent deck, see what he wants to bin out of there, maybe a cheeky climax or 2, put the rest back on top, and then of course burn his opponent for 2 damage on top of his regular attack.
And as we go to look at the opponent's deck list, we'll see that it's actually a pretty similar looking lineup, with a level 1 climax combo that similarly is discard 1, mill 5, and then select 2. So very similar in the early game. This is Bang Dream, so there's equally a ton of selective utility early, tons of control over deck state and hand state. And then the top end is an on-cancel restand, which is a little bit more explosive, but a little less consistent. Yeah, alright, so I think the players are ready. So we'll switch you over to the map view, and we'll get the game underway for you.
Very true. So, as we can see, they have all drawn their starting hands. They're deciding what they want to keep out of those lovely 5 that they have drawn. As we can see, Brian looking there. It looks like he's going to. He does indeed discard 3 right there.
Powerfully. We can tell from that Brian is the player who's going first this game, which I don't think either deck cares too much about whether they're going first or second. This isn't a standby matchup where going first is a huge advantage.
Very true. It's sort of like a more standard game of Weiss, as it were. And there we go, a cancel straight out of the bat from Brian.
So this card, this is from the original Roselia TD. This is a real throwback. It's a bottom deck bomb with the secondary effect of if your entire board is reversed, you can pay 1 encore. So it's a really strong first turn play. Just a pay 1/+1. If you've seen like a backfield runner, the pay 1 to run to back slot, it's pretty similar to that. Just gives up a reverse against level 1 combos, but the way that the meta is at the moment, that's not a huge deal anyway.
There we have Brian revealing one of his good old Akatsuki's right there on his attack.
So Akatsuki, if anyone out there doesn't know, it's come into play, discard a card, look at the top 4 cards, and choose a trait character and add it to your hand. So it's great hand filter, selectivity, mill, all the good stuff. There's a reason that you don't see them printed so much anymore.
Very true. And when they do get a nice new edition, it always comes with some nice different caveats of how it eventually gets to look at those top 4. And here we are with a lovely brainstorm. We're hitting 2 climaxes right there off the bat from MASH. And we're going searching, digging deep. And what are we finding here?
So I was speaking to Mash earlier this morning. He's a relatively new player. He's been playing for 5-6 months or so, which means he's very familiar with the modern meta. Some of the older sets might catch him out.
Very true. Ilya is not sort of like, well, even with like the more recent cards, it's quite sort of an older throwback. It's got a little few higgledy bits that the new set has ironed out comfortably, but it still has the added thing of making sure all his new trait cards have synergized well with his older traits.
Very true.
So it is something for him to watch out, as well as he does get the added benefits of his older cards having that slightly big power that the new cards have sort of nerfed slightly.
Just taking our time with these early turns, because in these matchups, like we said, it doesn't matter who goes first, but these early turns can be quite tense because it is so close to a mirror. How the early damage goes can dictate quite a lot of like the rest of the pace of the game.
Very true. Both being a bit more calculated, though we are seeing 3 guys here from MASH.
I hope to see a climax too, although with Brian's open board, it wouldn't make too much of a difference.
Very true. Can Brian, though, straight peel off 3 climaxes as he did with the first attack?
He's already 2 out. And if Mash is asking that, he's probably thinking about the climax and has chosen not to.
Ooh, and there we go. 2 damage coming straight in. 3. Ooh, and he does eat it all. And there we have the lovely new level 1
another trigger for
climax.
3.
And there is no on that 3. But sadly, that extra 2 does get him there. So Brian does have the option here to clock himself up to level 1 and really get his game rolling if he so wishes.
It's an interesting decision point, right? We don't know what his hand looks like necessarily, but he might be like, he can probably reverse this board with zeros if he has zeros available. So whether he actually wants to commit his level 1 combo just to have it be reversed by Mash's level 1 combo, it's a tough decision. He might want to delay it a turn, just keep the damage like even, not necessarily try to get ahead from here.
There we have. So as we can see, Brian has put a level 2 in to his level slot. So that, of course, meets all his requirements for his experience, of which he is now getting access to on his top 4 Ilya right there in the center. So he's dug 4 deep. He does have the swimsuit Ilya there is the reprint version of the card he has played, but they do have different names. So he is legally able to run, if he so wishes, 4 of each and have access to the same effect 8 times.
This is what we were talking about with the selectivity and the filtering. Just from one card, he's been able to build an entire board.
Very true. And there he is. He's found out himself the level 1 combo. A lovely sign right there. It is absolutely gorgeous.
This is one of the shiniest decks I've ever seen.
It is ridiculously nice. And that is the added benefit of extra booster sets, where you get that lovely foiling on all the cards, and sometimes an extra additional art as well.
So yeah, I am interested to see if Brian chooses to delay his combo here. He's clearly having to make that decision.
He is a bit there, a bit stuttery. He does look like he's delaying it a bit more, digging a bit deeper.
Yeah, he was a few climaxes out early, so he's just milling his deck out, making sure that this compression is decent enough for this most likely upcoming level 1 climax combo from Mash.
And there we are. There is the new Ilya Brainstormer right there in the back. So he does get to pay 1 and rest her to search for his magic and phantasms. And at the beginning of his climax, he does get to dish out 500 power to one of his guys, wherever he so wishes that power to go.
Don't know if he played that for the power or just in case he triggered pants so that he wouldn't go over hand size.
Very true. He could be thinking quite nicely on that. He has dug himself a nice hand. He wouldn't really want to ruin it a bit by overcommitting.
Okay, Mash has been hit up to level 1.
What would he suggest? What would you suggest he goes here? What combos would he want to have access to? He has chosen his yellow right there.
So, Mash's level 1 climax combo. It is very similar to Ryan's, as we were discussing. It doesn't spike as hard, because you only ever get 2 cards off it, but you mill 5 to choose from. So you have much more selectivity, and you're basically never going to miss it.
True, so if you could, what you lose on being able to grab cards to hand, you get the added bonus of going deeper into the deck, which is quite nice.
And it's also on the new choice trigger, which is a choice, if you ask me.
Very good, and it is a nice choice for your deck. As we can see, he's hit a nice brainstorm, gone searching himself out.
That is the climax combo there.
There we are.
We're getting set up and ready.
Both players loading their hands to the max with their combos, but which one of them is going to pull the trigger first? Would you suggest Mash go for combo here?
Well,
I think that's just answered our question right there.
Yeah. I don't think. Yeah, if he has this much setup, I don't think he's got room in his hand not to. You know,
Very
like
true.
he doesn't have enough backup choices in his hand to play a full board this time.
It looks like he is just going to go, I see your board, and I am just going to steamroll all over it with my combo and dig out some lovely extra cards from this deck. And there we go. How deep are we going? Are we going to go the full 5? I'm just counting how many. Oh, probably seeing how deep he can go on each one.
Yeah, if you're a newish, like just hitting like an intermediate level at home, want to make it a habit to count how many cards you have in deck and how efficiently you can mill through those.
Very true, because when it does say you can look up to, you do not have to go to that full maximum 4. You can stop anywhere in between and modulate your looking as you want.
This Bang Dream deck is really fun. It's got a bunch of the old hits, like the free fresh counter, and the Hagami Jinsu, so the climax searcher. So if you're like an old Bang Dream player, you see those and you do like the Spider-Man meme at them.
And there we are. He's going once again 5, choosing his cards wisely. What are we going to see here? Brian has said no to the first attack. Can he say no a second time? Just making sure everyone knows what the card effects do. Nice common courtesy between players right there. Nice for 2 damage. Brian does take it. And the Kuro is reversed. Well, then again, I don't think this is a bad state for Brian. He does want those effects not sort of sticking around on his board. He would much rather them go back into his waiting room, shuffle them back up, and get right back in to his hand to use once again.
Absolutely. Especially because his climax combo mills, he can go through the refresh and start finding these effects all over again, start cycling them.
He is a man that wants to mill himself until there is nothing left.
Okay, so Mesh deciding to go through the refresh here.
Very interesting here. I'm surprised he didn't stop at the top 2.
And then refresh with his choice back in, yeah. And maybe he miscounted, or maybe it's a deliberate decision.
Very true, knowing that all those cards are all clean. He can just get a nice pick and choose. Maybe he's looking for something particular.
His deck has some early plays in there that he might be trying to get out as soon as he hits level 2. They could be pretty important in this matchup. He could also be trying to build the stock swap Fumio combo
Very true.
Is in this deck.
As we can see, though, his hand is absolutely bulging at the seams right there. That is not in the bottom right a deck. That is indeed his hand.
Yeah, maybe he's just going for the back in the day, if you're a Televery player, going for the building a hand of like 9 or 10 cards and building compression that way. Just holding that hand through refresh and discarding afterwards.
Very true, because all his cards he doesn't have to discard until the end of the turn, so none of them are hitting that refresh. So it does allow him to get a bit more compression per se, even without that climax going back in.
Making sure to shuffle properly. This is an official tournament, so and on stream, so you know everyone's judging you for how you shuffle. You've got to take extra time and extra care.
Very true. Ooh, and a climax straight, 2 climaxes straight out of that deck. Compression is sadly a lie at this point in time for old Mash. Holding back on that turn, Brian has inadvertently probably stumbled into a great opportunity to pull this trigger.
Yeah, there's no better time to push damage because Mash committed that triple guide board so early. We've hit a stage where there are nearly always going to be 3 like defended lanes. There's not going to be very many direct attacks from this point in the game onwards.
And we can see a nice cheeky look at Mash's hand right there. He's filtering out what he needs and what he doesn't. Choosing, I want these 7 and no more. And there it is. 2 of the combo from Brian there. Would he be trying to commit and try and maybe cheek out a 3rd? See if he can get there? Or are you going to pull the trigger right now?
When the climax combo pluses so much, you really don't need to tri-lane it like other climax combos. It's just not necessary.
Very true. But
the extra selection is nice, having like the redundancy, but it's completely optional.
Oh, and there we are, all 3 just scooped straight up there.
Yeah, looking at his deck state, if he did go for 2, he would have to refresh with his climax up, so he might have chosen to hold back 1.
Very true. He does get a nice, so even going the full 3 once again, which Brian is obviously doing. Does he go a 3rd? Go on.
He can probably get away with just the 2, assuming those are both on trait.
They are both indeed phantasms right there. He can scoop them both up. Well, the reprint is magic, but he does allow himself to grab it, and he does scoop them up. Oh, but sadly there is the trigger. If he went that 3rd deep, he could have gone it right back into the waiting room. So greed was the play.
I mean, it works out the same, right? It's a climax out of refresh either way. In this way, he nets a card, so it's not as bad as it first appears, I think.
True, he does have a nice healthy amount of stock, a nice collection of cards sort of in his hand, on his field. all of which count towards his compression right there.
And sets up for his finishing turn too. Finisher is pay 1 and discard 2. So he's looking for the cards more than he's looking for the stock.
This is a very heavy cost right there. As well, he's probably looking for some experience cards, because he does have to hit experience level 6. So he has to have a combination of cards in his level that add up to 6. So as at the moment he has 2, he needs to find an extra 4. And there we are. Another cheeky bit of damage. He has got mash up to 2-2. And a full well, it's not full. 2 lanes reversed and a complementary. You can keep that lane.
Yeah, he's chosen to keep the characters there to deny direct attacks, and he sees that as more important than pushing more damage. Because this is so close to... This is very fair Weiss Schwarz, despite the climax combos in play. It's a handshake. We're at about the same damage level. I don't need to crash into you, go for the extra soul. It's just greedy, unnecessary.
Very true, Brian. Just asking to see that card, make sure he understands the full effect of it. So what does this one do? Shoot us a rhyme there, Ewan.
So this is 2 or less climax early play.
Ooh.
So I believe Brian was just checking the condition. For each of your characters in back row, it gains 1k. And then on play heal. So pretty generic profile, but it gets pretty beefy. It hits 11 with 2 characters in the back row, which Match does have here.
It is quite nice because not really much actually targets the back row. So your back row is pretty much, unless you yourself wish to move it, or that rare opportunity when something does in fact interact with it, is pretty static. So that is a nice consistent power buff.
Especially if you consider a lot of the more popular early plays these days are 4 or more characters anyway. It's not really that much of a downside for the extra power.
Very true. And it does get nice and chunky, able to run over that Mew right there it's facing. Just shuffling up, seeing which plays. How would Mash want to play it? Would he want to go full aggression? If he has a climax in hand, would he want to play it at this point in time?
I think we know that Brian's 2 out because he triggered a pants and token pants. I think a refresh with 6. He has a lot of cards out at the moment, but you can't force a level before refresh anyway. I would be inclined to send it.
It would be quite an aggressive move if he did decide to climax right here, but he's taking the more standard approach, just crashing lanes, running over everything right there.
So this card Mash has that he just swung with, it's a pretty interesting card. If you're familiar with the Flame Sisters from Charlotte, it's kind of similar.
Ooh.
So this version is a Shimakai, so on attack, pump power for the number of characters that you have. But at the start of your attack step, it can change into a back row card. It's a global 500. Then you can pay 1, rest 2 to reveal the top card of your deck.
Ooh.
And salvage a level X equal to the card that you revealed.
That's some nice utility right there.
So it is normally just a blank Shimakai wouldn't make it into a list, but that change and that extra utility gives it enough potential that it sneaks in.
As we can see, Brian took that first attack. He is now up to experience 5 with that Ilya level 3 that he has put right into there. So he's 1 experience away from his level 3 actually being able to do the finishing it wants to do.
Oh yeah, apologies. So the early play heals at encore step.
Ooh.
So that's why we just saw Mash heal at the end of his turn. He's not cheating, I promise viewers.
Even more interesting. So even if you do not have the damage at that time, you can indeed heal it off. If you go through your climax refresh and take that penalty at the encore step, you can just heal it straight off. A very nice card indeed.
It makes it very splashable, because you can play multiple, and then even if you only have like one blue card in clock to activate it, and you would normally heal that off, turning off the others, you can just play them all and heal at the end of the turn. It's very slick.
So Brian deciding what's he gonna do this time. He's staring at a big but chunky board right there.
Well, the side lanes aren't that chunky, and I think that's part of why the Shimakai is here. So the climax combo is only 5/5 during your turn. It's one of those like old 4/5 base gain 1k during your turn type profiles. So the Shimakai helps it reverse lanes, but on the defense it's only 5/5, maybe 6k with the back row, but that back row isn't here.
We are going 4 deep on there, right there. He grabs the Kuro. As we can see, Brian's still just sort of digging around. What does he want from this deck?
Yeah, he's really knuckling down, trying to sort out his compression, get as far through this deck as possible. Because refreshing with 6, when your deck's this low to the ground, you just can't get away with it.
Very true. He seems to be scrabbling for any piece he can have that digs him a bit deeper, gets him a bit closer to what he wants. He can dig, but can he dig enough?
I'm not sure what Mash's deck state is like at the moment. I think it's like exceptionally average, right?
It seems to be quite solid at the moment. He's not too bad at the moment, but he's not too great.
Yeah, I don't think this Bang Dream deck compresses or mills spectacularly outside the level 1 combo. So that is like a weakness of the list, but you gain that back in other ways.
Well, as we can see, Brian's just filtering through. There he is, playing the alternate art version. Well, effectively the reprint version, alternate art. Grabbing more. This man is going as deep as he can possibly go.
That might be set up for next turn because he's already refreshing with this deck as it is.
Ooh.
Do you know what this card does?
This is actually a promo version. I'm certain it is, in fact, yes, it is the refresh. It is one of the free refresh cards Ilya does have, in fact, access to. So he has 5 or less cards in his deck. He is allowed to shuffle his waiting room back into his deck and not take that refresh penalty. So he's able to scoop it all up and then go again.
So it's a huge upside to running so many mill tools, right? Like normally the downside of that running through your deck so quickly would be taking a lot more refresh damage points than your opponent over the course of a game. But this mitigates that weakness entirely.
It does, though he does have to sort of grab it, and as we can sort of see, he doesn't really have that many spaces in his deck that he's allowed to slot himself in. And he does have to try and acquire it along his travels or keep it in hand and crank it off when needed.
Interesting choice of words there.
And there we go. The sideways are going.
It's interesting. In a lot of matchups, this 2-1 would just be able to sit on board relatively uncontested. But this early play, being strong in both players' turns, and not just like the turn that it comes in, means that Mash can likely reverse it outside counter range without having to think too hard.
Very, very true. There we can see Brian not being able to really touch that early play, even with his lovely free fresh. It's just not hitting that power spike he needs to remove it from the field. So Mash just gets to sit on it, even if its damage is... It's done all it can, and now it is just cranking Brian over the head as much as he can possibly take.
Yeah, actually I missed this. So the card in the back row, the girl with the neon hair, pairs with the early play. And it gives it 2,000 power, hexproof, can't be reversed by auto effects, and pay on double trigger.
Oh my god.
It also gains power and hand on core if you put it in the front row. I think Mesh chose to put it in the back row just to make sure that it was safe. Probably respecting Brian's early free fresh and knowing that it could be contested. So yeah, this early play is even chunkier than we thought it was. a lot of anti-change options do just reverse.
Yeah, it's sort of a different thing of where, well, once it is reversed, where that card eventually does end up. We do have a nice sort of selection at the moment of anti-change slayers, as they are now dubbed. But Ilya's ones,
not so great.
They're nice quality of life ones, but you do have such a nice wealth of cards in Ilya. It's quite difficult sometimes to find room for some of those staples.
Mash dropping a blank choice, just swinging into this freshly shuffled deck from Brian. Just trying to deal damage while the slots are available. Likely trying to just get this climax out of hand as well.
There's a big 4 coming at Brian right there. Oh my god. Oh, and he takes all of that 4.
As they say, compression is a lie. You spend all your time building the perfect deck and then just eat 7 off the top. It's just how it goes.
A very difficult choice for Brian. Oh, and he has to take quite a nice level 3 Mew there, which is one of his additional healers as his extra experience level right there.
Okay, he does cancel that swing, which means this is definitely still a game. Don't write Brian or Ilya player out yet.
Ilya may be down, but she is certainly not out at this moment.
I mean, that damage swing looks scary, but both players are still basically even.
It is pretty much anyone's game to play for at this moment in time. So Brian, if he does get that combo off, he can crank in for a good amount of damage, and all the level 3s Brian does have access to do in fact heal him, so he can mitigate some of that damage that he's been dealt and try and stay in the game. Oh.
Yeah, I wonder if he'll go for a like a half finish turn here rather than going for like the full ending potential, just trying to like heal down, swing with big soul numbers, trying to survive for another turn so that he can guarantee the lethal.
As you can see Brian shuffling through that deck. What does he wish to grab out of this? Checking over again, making sure his choices are quite solid. He's probably thinking this is we're heading into sort of the end game. He has to make every choice count.
Yeah, every decision is very important now. He can't spend his like hand resources on Azazur effects anymore because it's just discarding to mill. He just doesn't have the room in his hand unless he is going for this half turn, in which case maybe, but even then you probably want to be playing 2 level 3s this turn, and I don't know if he's gonna be achieving that.
So we do see both choices right there. He has chosen the level 3 and the level 1. It lets him allow him to look at his top 4 and grab one of his guys. Both very costly on his hands. But which route? He has left himself open to either choice at this moment, so he can choose either. And there it is, the Mew healer. So
discard heal to stock is really good in this scenario because he was stretching his resources pretty thin. This definitely allows him to keep his stock count, keep his compression up for this upcoming turn.
Very, very true. And this one is experience. If he has 5 in his level during his turn, it does get 2,500 power on attack.
Okay, so he is going to try and challenge this early play.
Very true, but once again, even though he has healed to stock, he is bleeding hand a bit more, playing his level 3 finisher just for the heal at this point.
I love seeing this play, playing the finishers back row. I think it's just something you do see it a lot these days, but it just hits me in that sweet spot. You feel very smart when you come up with this.
Very true. He does have, well, at the moment, it is just a heal on a body. And it does keep him away. He doesn't need it to be any flashy. It just needs to sit there for the moment. And then when he's ready to pull the trigger, it can come up front and center and do all the work.
Okay, so Brian's chosen instead to not challenge that early play. Maybe he double checked, as we had to, what that card in the back row does, and
Very
found
true.
out quite how big that early play gets.
Yeah, it is quite the big girl. Obviously, as we can see, all the big girls wear the cat ear headphones.
It's very true. We all know that to be true.
And still, we can see 2 attacks, and Brian is really not being able to push massive amounts of damage, just being able to chip Mash as close to level 3 as he possibly can.
Mash can clock himself up to level 3 this time. That's probably the dream scenario for him.
Very true. And he does have that nice advantage of, even at both, the false thing of both of them being at the same damage, being on the attack at that damage level, you do get that lovely, I'm going to try and kill you as best as I can. And there it is, we are both up to level 3. Now we get to see both finishers potentially coming at it.
So I was describing Mash's finish potential as explosive earlier. His finisher itself only procs if the swing cancels. So it doesn't actually deal that much damage, like, reach-wise, but his deck also includes a stock swap and a Fumio. So it can be really devastating. It can really guarantee those, like, big, chunky 3-4 soul vanilla swings.
True. So rather than sort of... what we could mainly say is, while Brian is going for a additional damage, Mash is going for more, I'm going to just guarantee this damage.
Absolutely.
Through one way or another.
So, yeah, the interesting thing about Ilya's finisher is it's a Mocha effect, so look at the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. It's like send any into waiting room and then shuffle them, or just leave them there?
You can send any to the waiting room, and then whatever's come back just plonks straight back on the top of that deck.
And then it also burns 2.
It does indeed.
You get to choose the order that those effects resolve.
Yes, you do.
So you can choose to try and burn 2 just to ping a climax off, then look at another 2 to try and guarantee the 3 swing. Or if you just need to guarantee the burn 2, you can go for the other mode. It's a very, very interesting, very good skill testing card.
Very true. Brian does have access to a different way.
Just received word that the stream game is going to be going to time very shortly. Likely won't matter because we are in the final turns of the game anyway.
Very true, but once that time is called, we will obviously go to 3 turns, starting from turn 0 on the active player. And then it's either death or highest damage. Am I correct in that assumption right there?
Yeah, I believe it does go to highest damage, and then if it's tied, it goes to some other ludicrous measurement that I think has come up once and made one player feel very aggrieved.
But of course, if that does indeed happen, the judges will keep us nicely informed. And there we go, a nice big fat brainstorm, hitting 2 climaxes right there from Mash.
So the cost on Mash's finisher is pay to send this card to memory. So you can think of as just pay 1 if you include the stock that you generate from swinging. So if you look at his stock count here, he has enough to pull off 2 very easily.
He does have a nice healthy amount of stock right there.
I think he's pulling out one of his level 1 combos here just to remove a blank trigger from his deck, because he does want the extra soul here, just to guarantee that he's not, dealing, I don't know, exactly 6 damage to Brian, leaving him on 3/6 and letting him heal down 3 refresh.
Very true. Though Brian would have a nice... Well, he'd have to have a very specific quantity of cards in his hand. Could get a cheeky look there, but I can't quite see if those cards did exist in his hand. We can see this is everyone going hell for leather. And obviously, we have Mash, gun in hand, effectively, at Brian. Let's see where this Russian roulette ends us.
So yeah, this climax combo is funny. It's kind of a win-win. You're either sticking the damage, or you get a second chance to stick the damage.
Very true. It is a lethal board to be staring down. I would not like to be in Brian's shoes when all this damage is spewing at me from left, right, and centre. And there it is. There's a free. What does Brian say to this? He does indeed cancel, and then the effect pops off. And there we go. Off it goes to be nothing but a memory.
Oh, it grabs another one and he can loop it now.
Oh my days.
It just keeps going.
This is not an enviable state for Brian to be in. He has to have a very, very good compression rate. Can he pull it off? Then we do see a choice, so he does allow himself to get a cheeky bit of extra stock right there.
It's a little bit of anti-synergy, because that might be a target that he wants to call out, but he can just pay the 2 and pay it straight out, so it doesn't actually matter. I take it back.
Very true. He does, this choice combo, well, choice trigger does allow him to get that extra bit of stock to pull more triggers. But Brian does just eat that free straight there.
I'm not sure if I love this attack here. Just because he might want the option to slide for 1 as opposed to swinging for big numbers for the rest of the turn.
And there we have another cancel right there. So of course, Mash does get to do his combo.
His combo very much says you're going to take 9 damage one way or another this time. I will make it happen. I will use everything in my power.
It is ridiculously brutal of a combo to be facing. And here we are, 2, 3 right there.
There's the 3.
Oh.
And with this last swing, Brian's going to refresh, so that's the game.
A nice collection of cards right there from end. A solid game from both players.
Alright, so wrapping up that game, thinking about it. Just like there weren't any surprises other than the early play, which just in its efficiency caught us off guard.
Very, very true. That thing was a big girl just sitting there being able to just take out whatever lane it was faced against.
Generated a ton of value sitting on the board for 3 turns, creating open lanes, whereas besides that we were in a deadlock of sweeping, reversing the entire board back and forth.
Very true. Brian did put up a good game. It was very good seeing him sort of go deep. He could have potentially gone a bit deeper on some of his choices. Maybe branch out. Not because when you do have access to such a high quality of being able to top 4 so consistently, you do get a bit blinded in, oh, I can just keep chaining these into each other and mill myself until I'm effectively dumb in the face.
It's very true. Having so many branching decisions in front of you is pretty easy to get overwhelmed. And having said that, I don't think Brian really let this game get away from him. It was just how the climaxes fell and how explosive that Bang Dream finishing really is.
Very, very true. He would have needed a very compressed to a certain point deck in order to sort of effectively survive himself on that turn, where you'd want to cancel and then potential of what gets called out, either cancel or just take the damage if it's not too bad. Because even though he has an access to that waiting room, it's the quality of the cards within that waiting room that he calls out that he is effectively relying on.
It's very true. That combo, the fact that it chooses anything, so you get soul manipulation too, it's crazy. it's really cool.
He's a very, very nice finisher. It is quite sad that we did not get to see the finisher from Ilya from Brian after all that setup of getting his experience, getting his hand all together nice and ready, and sadly Ilya being regulated to just an on-play heal. But you never know. We could be seeing it further down the line in a later game later today. You never know.
Absolutely. Stay tuned for more Ilya content. Alright, we're going to take a quick break while the pairings for round 2 go up. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back to the UK Open Live. We've got our round 2 players seated. We've got a few little technical glitches to sort out, so in the meantime, you're just here with me and John vibing. Hope you're having a good time on this lovely Saturday morning.
Very, very true. I hope you're all still lovely and wrapped up in this chilly November weather right here.
Get yourself a cup of hot cocoa. Hope you're enjoying the. I assume you guys can see the time wizard on screen.
He's a powerful centre marker right there.
Love that guy. Big fan.
Obviously showing our players mastery of the timing capabilities. If his deck is anything to go on.
So the matchup we've got for you is Data Live versus Decapo, two relative titans of the modern metagame. Data Live maybe taken a hit since the ban list, but definitely still a force to be reckoned with.
Very true. It is a absolutely monster of a deck. The so-called boogeyman of Weiss Schwarz at the moment. Even though, even while crippled, it's still very potent. Especially with that new data bullet extra booster it did receive.
Absolutely. Decapo, maybe not as commonly seen. Definitely fewer players just in general, just because so many people bought Data Live in English.
Very true there.
But I wouldn't say particularly less powerful.
Yeah, very, very true. He does seem to be the sort of the older player that does gravitate a bit more to the capo side. As we can see, Richard is a very veteran player, and he absolutely loves this set. Even though it is one of, in fact, the 3 original sets, if I do believe, of release, along with Persona 3 and Little Busters, I believe, as well. If memory does indeed serve.
I only remember Persona 3 of the original sets. Everything else is a blur for me.
If not indeed the original 3 is definitely the first couple.
Okay, so we're gonna go into deck lists, starting with the Data Live player, I suppose.
So spin me a rhyme. What does old Brandon want to be doing in his Data Live?
What I mean, I'm seeing a lot of the big hits here. It's Book into Bar.
That is very interesting for a Data Live build. Usually we do see the sort of the 8 standby meta as it is classed. Quite a strong deck, so this is a quite stretch out.
Yeah, I mean, I do know that a lot of people just find the 8 standby plan boring to play, and which I guess is fair enough.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt him on that.
So the level 1 combo is Encore Step. If there's no character facing it or the character is reversed, you can look at top 5 and add 1.
Ah, it's that combo, which I do believe, if the judge ruling is correct, he does trigger if it is on the back row as well, I do believe.
Yeah, I believe.
I'm certain there
might be true.
was. A judge would have to correct me, but I do believe it does also trigger on the back row, as there is indeed effectively no character opposite it.
So that's a fringe play. Try that out at your locals. See how it goes. Write a letter.
Though do indeed consult your hedge judge. I might not be certain if the ruling still holds.
And then the top end is another with multiple modes. It's either a shuffle back and gain extra soul, or deal 2. Pretty interesting.
A pretty nice standard build. Not too bad. Well,
all right, so we don't have time to get into the other deck list because these players are ready to go.
So sadly, we'll have to do Decapo on the fly, but rest not. Your newspapers will be delivered, and your magical girls will indeed be there as Decapo's story does unfold before us.
Players flashing the camera for us. We didn't ask them to do that. They're doing that of their own volition.
We can see Richard there clocking straight away the climax.
So we have to fess up as commentators. We're not perfect. We're not familiar with this Da Capo list. Our tech team didn't get it to us, so we're gonna be doing our best. I have played against Da Capo before. I believe you likely have as well.
I have indeed, but the deck has varied so many times in its new iterations, it is quite difficult.
Feels like every Da Capo player has a different take on what Da Capo does.
Very true, but as we can see, this card here is in fact well, not a mill runner, it is indeed a free runner. So at the beginning of his opponent's attack phase, he may move his card to here, there, and everywhere on that front row, avoiding a nice attack and sticking around, as well as on attack being able to pay one of his stock and double triggering. So he is able to do the trigger step twice and get the benefits from there.
It's an insane profile. It's a crazy good card.
Very true. Richard's cancelling one, taking only a slight bit of damage there. So once again, sort of, we're not treated to like the standby where you have to morph your play style to effectively accommodate for a big hitter appearing here, there, out of nowhere.
Standby is such a divisive effect. I'm still kind of surprised. I was playing when they introduced it. Originally, people just blanched because it was a new trigger. And people just don't like new things being added. But I don't think any single other effect has shaken up the game to the extent that Standby has.
Very, very true. It is a absolute bananas trigger, as we can see.
But you know, having said that, I don't think it's necessarily more powerful. It just opens up a different playstyle. So if you think about it, how powerful is like playing a 1k Wanter board? It's pretty huge, and that decides a lot of matchups how your 1k one turn goes. So the Day of Life player here choosing to eschew the more common builds and build something a bit niche might get a tiny advantage out of like the early mulligan, but more than that, he'll just like have more. He has a different style of play open to him.
So as we can see right there, Richard has indeed used his clean cut effects. So when his card does reverse his opponent, he is able to rest and bring back another card of his choice. So he has saved himself his runner and another copy of his guy, bringing them back, opening up those two lanes for his opponent to push, and he has a nice healthy amount of stock for such an early turn in the game.
So for the back row thing with the level 1 combo you were talking about earlier, would you look at the corresponding back row to see if there was a card there or not? Or would it just be the back row does not face another row?
Well, technically there is no card in front, well, opposite this back row card. There is only in front of your back row. There's not an opponent, an opposite to it, since it is in that sort of weird halfway between your two front zones. So I think technically, through odd bits of wording, it does classify as there's nothing opposite.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would recommend you just crack that out on the world stage. I'd say ask a local judge, find out what their opinion is. Looks like this player is convinced that that's how the card works, though.
So we shall indeed see if this is indeed correct on our rulings. So do bear with us. We do have our judges on standby to correct any such happenstances.
Do have to respect the player's bling, though, and their confidence.
Very, very true. That is some nice signatures right there. All lovely and on display.
It isn't interesting if you compare this to the standby build. Whereas standby is focused on board control, absolutely wants to play big guys, keep them there, keep them backed up. This is almost having the opposite game plan. It's like, I don't care about what's happening in the middle of the board. All my value's in my back row.
Very true. And this does allow him to effectively generate advantage in every other opportunity where sort of standby, you're grinding your opponent slowly. This is, I'm going to do everything I need to do, play it all nice and fair, and then we'll get to it.
So, Day Alive player here has the option to mill up to 15 cards. I don't think he's gonna go quite that intense with it.
That is an insane amount of dig into that early deck.
I think their early deck is in a relatively compressed state, which is why they're holding back on those mills, just trying to maintain that high climax density rather than just ripping through it, because there's no need.
Everything playing out as we go. So let us see how we're going to do this. Richard's sort of deciding. Once he got back there, he has a clean cut and a free runner sat on that back. Not the most explosive of level 1 games if he so wishes to just use those.
But then, having said that, because the Day Alive player so much does not care about the front row, this clean cut still has potential targets after a level 1 climax combo turn, which you couldn't say about nearly any other matchup.
Very, very true. He is a beefy toker that Richard is staring down. What is he going to muster up against it? Counting out the deck, seeing how good it's going to go. So, if memory does serve, I am certain I know which combo he is indeed going to go, but we'll hold off until we can confirm once we see the card. Shuffling it up.
Just confirming powers, making sure that everything's...
And there it is. It is the card I did indeed think of. So this does have a recollection ability. So if your memory has any cards in it, this card gains the following 2 effects. So all he has to have is just something in memory. So it does obviously allow him to play his climax without needing to have the colour restrictions met. So he can just play his choice.
Love
because
the
why not? And then, obviously, his combo is a pretty bog standard on attack. Look at top 4.
Am I correct in saying that the climax...
Oh, sorry. I would have to solve. The climax combo is normal. The recollection ability is you can play both that and the climax without meeting the colour requirements. Sorry for that little happenstance. So he can just splash this into a fully red deck if he so wishes, and absolutely play it legally as long as he has a card in memories.
Yeah, it's I think having not going for that splash plan and having a more like standard yellow splash means that, you know, if a game goes like this where he hasn't seen his memory tools early, he's not missing out. He can still play his climax combo completely normally.
So a little quirk from Richard that once his stock does get to a ridiculous level, he does pile it up quite a big nice amount there. So condensing it all down as he has a absolute ludicrous amount for such an early phase. And this is only, turn 3?
Yeah, he hasn't attacked with much more than you would normally expect. One big advantage of clean cut, the rest and move to back row, is that it does afford you an attack that normally you would hold off, you know, worried about, oh, do I want to commit this card? It's going to die on the swing back. Clean cut gets around that and just nets you a free attack and a free stock.
Very true, but we also haven't seen any standard sort of ways of using his stock effectively, like his brainstorms. He does not have that on the back row, so that stock effectively is just sat there. He cannot filter it away, pick and choose what he wants. It is just, I'm going to keep collecting this and then eventually spend it.
It's just naked compression, like the good old days.
It is quite. Though, is it unable to look for his brainstorm, or is he just waiting until it eventually hits his hand? It is quite a risky move, I would say, from Richard, depending on what his mentality and what, in fact, collection of cards he has acquired in his hand are.
Does Day Alive have access to a stock swap type effect?
It did on the original Toka from... Not Toka, Kurumi level 3 standby, as it was more of a myriad of effects.
So not available to this player.
So I believe Richard is quite actually safe from his stock being swapped around.
He does. So yeah, the our day alive player doesn't have a challenge for the stock, but he does have the finisher shuffling cards from waiting room into deck. So if he can catch Richard at just the perfect time, where his deck has maybe one.
And there we are. He does have the book combo in hand.
Yet another turn of value. It's incredible.
So we do get to see, does he wish to play it? Pushing those tokens up right there, front and center.
Yeah.
Combo for combo.
It's worth it now because you're trading combos, and that's better than crashing in, right? Because even if you're losing value yourself, you're also denying that value to your opponent. And I think our day alive player sees themselves on like the back foot here, so they don't want the game to completely fall apart.
Very, very true. Even though so some would say like it's not the amount of stock you have, it's how clean and well, effectively how little of the pieces you wish to have go in there.
It's how you use it, one could say.
It's not the motion of the ocean, it's the size of the wave, I would say. I am much more of the Richard big stock, let's pay for some big effects. And there it is, a big old cancel straight off.
We're not actually we're not going to see. Okay, now we will start to see the benefits of this compression.
So, can Richard pull off a nice... Well, you wouldn't want to see a climax straight away. Let's get that refresh point out of the way and then see a climax, shall we?
Do you call this like a 25 card deck? Maybe like 27?
I would say we're about half his deck he is playing with. And sadly, we do see that climax coming straight out.
The two sides of the compression coin, of course, referring to the time wizard in the middle of the board there.
Very, very true. We have flipped that coin, and I think we've both ended up with tails here.
That's an unfortunate book into book there. After the gold bar trigger, it's very unfortunate. This swing back from Richard could be pretty deadly.
And that was the final attack right there from our Day Alive guy. And he's not really able to push that damage further through level 2. He's just about... Richard's just in the door of level 2. Not too bad. And he's able to quickly grab his opponent if he's... Well, if he is able to, and yank him straight along the rails with him. How are we, Richard, going to play this? The bar's discarded right there.
One of the upsides of hand size, I suppose. Yeah. He chose to discard the bar, even though it's his finishing combo, so as to not reveal that he drew a book off the book trigger.
Oh, it's quite nice being able to do that access with that bar right there, being able to scoop it up. So even if, well, you've got 7 in hand and that's your 8th, you can keep it, you can discard it. The choice is up to you.
It was very interesting. I was at a bar with a friend of mine, Ben, the other night, and gold bar is traditionally seen as a very strong trigger. I think you'd agree.
Oh yes, definitely. It's it's almost guaranteed in some way that climax will get to your hand.
But he was saying that he doesn't like gold bar and he thinks it's a bad trigger. And especially on finishes, like on something like Yuki from Sword Art, you need that combo every game, so having that consistency really matters. But on a finisher, gold bar can be a liability on turns like this, where you don't know what you blind stocked. You're like going through your deck at like a crazy pace. You get this gold bar in hand that you don't need yet. You don't want to sandbag it from late level 1, level 2. And it can be more of a liability than a boon.
So we can see that card in Richard's center right there. It is once again another recollection card. So if he has a card in memories, it gets a nice 1500 power boost. So adding another 1500 power onto its already 4/5 base.
Where is his memory setup? Is he not running it? Has he just not seen it?
I think we are actually seeing it sort of, well, we will actually see, but also on that additional card, if it ends up into the waiting room, he is allowed to dig 3 cards deep and actually grab himself an anniversary or a newspaper card or character and then discard the rest, and then discard a card from his hand, allowing him to nicely filter out any old chaff that he's picked up along the way.
Here we go. The memory engine is online.
And now we have it. We have the power in the center right there.
Oh. I don't know if he wanted to trigger that choice there, so maybe it's a blessing in disguise.
Very true. Yes. You gotta...
Yeah.
I would take it as it comes.
It's not a position you would choose to be in, but that's how compression goes, you know? Sometimes you see your climaxes on your opponent's turn, sometimes you see them on yours.
Very true. And this is the gamble you do play when you play that nice compression game. Every subsequent turn after, you have to really sort of gamble. Do I go brainstorm here? Do I attack in this direction? Or do I hold back a bit? Because every subsequent card becomes more likely that you're going to see more and more climaxes the less you filter out into that stock. And it is a bit mentally brutal on these both players right here. They're choosing which punches to take and which ones to give.
Using the clean cut effect there to slide that character across the back row.
As we can see, Richard going 3 cards deep. Another climax be revealed, but he has effectively milled himself back to another deck refresh.
It's a crazy amount of mill. I wasn't respecting it. I guess because the deck's so thin now, that your mill tools don't have to be as potent as maybe the Ilya game. If you miss that, there'll be a VOD up within a few days, I'm sure.
Very true. And this is sort of the power of that first deck we have seen. Like, he wasn't really contested much, and he was able to acquire a vast amount of stock very early.
So, yeah, only a few cards left in the deck, and even though he's milled through a lot of climaxes this turn, there's probably still a couple of cancels kicking around in there.
Yes, but as we could see, we did get a sneak peek at his finisher right there. So, for future reference, this finisher combo allows him to, of course, the bog standard heal on play. Then on attack, with the choice, he gets to pay 1 if he has 4 or more other guys out on his stage. So he has to have a full board. He gets to obviously pay the top cost, and this card gains the following effect. So once per turn, when damage is dealt, he can deal 2 to his opponent, and then he gets to choose another character and give it that ability. So the card he then chooses gets the on cancel burn 2. It is a staggering amount, so he can stack these all on his effectively final attack and just get a
preferably
ridiculous...
into a direct slot, I would assume.
Oh, no doubt. He's quite the soul rush play, a very hungry play, I would say, on that, where you're banking all on one giant swing.
So, Richard is playing early play heal to stocks. She might be upset that he didn't get to see those this
Very
game.
true.
But not that he needs the stock necessarily, but he might, the 2-soul beta could go pretty uncontested against this data life.
But at this point, I would say Richard is very much stock for the stock god. If players out there get that reference, he's looking at you kids.
Get games stalled out at level 2, as both lists have kind of, well, the data life players maybe, riding a little bit of a luck wave, but the
Very true.
our Da Capo player just compressed, just as you love to see.
At this point, he is sort of seeing, like, how does he crack this deck that Richard has built? There is really not much on field. He is facing literally just a clean-cut level 0. It's not difficult to get over, but the compression is just brutal from Richard. Well, we say that, and then he just takes 4 straight damage.
Sorry, I forgot, ladies and gentlemen and others, that compression is a lie.
So put a nice compression is a lie in chat right there.
Oh no! He must have milled through all of his climaxes in that past turn. That's devastating. That's a huge swing.
Oh, but as we can see, that is a very small pile Richard is shuffling up right there. It is very, very thin, and those 2 cards are not going back into that shuffle as well.
He is keeping so many cards out with his level and his stock and his hand even. Um, and I think he's still very much in here because I don't think this Day of Life finisher is all that.
Very true. Oh, more damage just bleeding from Richard here. So he probably would have hoped to just sort of cancel and ride a bit of a nice compression wave and then just effectively pick his opponent off when he chooses. But now he's got to think a bit more on his feet. How does he...
Oh, that's the refresh point.
You hate to see it, especially in your compression, but it is the gamble you take when you play this type of deck. And obviously there is the benefit he has reaped straight away as well.
Another turn of triple climax combo without them all being in the front row. This is crazy. I didn't know that this climax combo worked this way. This is I'm having to rethink all of the rules of the game that I know.
It is a ridiculous, like, but just that wording itself just lends itself to this silly effectively play. And now with sort of the nerfs for like the other decks, it does allow this Toka to effectively be a nice combo to choose from and give you access to that ridiculous play.
If you haven't, if you've been looking at your Day of Life deck kind of sadly, been thinking, oh man, wish I was off the ban list. Wish I could return to the glory days. Maybe give this combo a second look. Maybe take it for a spin.
It's definitely nothing to sneeze at. It's a very potent combo as we have seen today.
Confuse everyone at your locals. Make them pick up the card and read it.
Very true. Though, if you do, make sure you have either a judge or the FAQ on hand to, of course, let them know, yes, this is the correct ruling of the card.
Yeah, maybe practice with friends. Maybe don't pull this out on a stranger.
And as we can see, Richard playing his level 3 finisher right there.
Healing down.
Does he go for the finish? Ooh.
Playing
more
to
in
the back row?
So maybe sort of signaling that he might not be going for the finishing turn this turn if he's pulled one back.
Yeah, it's an interesting half measure because he can't afford to pull two back because he needs the two soul swings. He needs the damage catch up here. He can't afford to put on the brakes too hard.
Very true. And he's got his opponent in quite a nice sort of situation. The Day of Life player's not got much stock to work with, so he's pretty much bare bones on what he could throw back at level 3. Whereas Richard has the pick of the litter, as we have seen. Now we just need to see where those climax triggers do indeed lie.
The Day of Life gold bar finisher is free, by the way. So even with only 4 stock, you can play two down and use their effect twice.
True.
Actually, I misspoke. The burn 2 costs, but the shuffle back and gain soul, that is free. So a mode of it, and probably the mode that he would rather be using in this matchup is available.
So as we can see, there is a Otohime in that bottom left corner right there. So this is if all of his guys on the front row are Anniversary or Magic or I can't remember what the other trait for no, Student Council. As of course, being an old set, DeCapo has a ridiculous amount of traits. So it does get a nice 1/5 power boost. And of course, a Recollection, though he has to have 4 or more cards in his memory in order to gain some of delicious effects where that card can't be chosen by his opponent's effects. And he gets a pay to ditch one on reverse of his opponent, and he has 2 or more of the Anniversary, Magic, or Newspaper. He gets to deal 2. But sadly, we only see 1 card in that memory, so it is bad news bears. But he has chosen his other combo. But he has pulled the trigger, what I would consider quite early for this.
He might just feel the need to push some damage through, just to have a chance at killing next turn. Maybe without this combo, he thinks, if he cancels twice, that's just game over.
Very, very true. You can see damage coming left, right, and centre from Richard, and he has equalised right there. And this final swing coming in. And a choice.
It's not when you want to see it. Not at this stage of the game.
Where is the card going to go? Does he want the stock or the hand? I would most... Yes, there is the hand, as you probably would have thought.
This is a minus soul counter.
You hate to see it come down. But in fact, there it is. So all that damage that Richard would have done just bleeds away straight from him.
So if you're unfamiliar with how this soul counter works, you perform an effect 3 times, choose one of your characters, and it gets character opposite, loses a soul. So you get to choose where you allocate that minus soul. You can choose to spread it all across, or pile it all into one lane. Our Day Alive player here has chosen to stack it all in one lane.
But even through all that, he still managed to deal 2 damage through because of his effects from his climax combo. So now we can see, but he has, the Day Alive player is now down to 1 stock, so he cannot answer through a level 3, seemingly, unless I'm mistaken and Day Alive can generate an additional stock out of nowhere.
I think the plan is to just go here. He does have a book in hand, so I think he's going along. He's trying to chip even more. Which I'm not sure if that's the best plan against the Capo, since there are so many healers, not in this list, but just in the set in general, that players are inclined to play.
But true, he does technically, if he's on this line of reasoning, he just has to deal 6 damage and then potentially do a repeat of last game and have the refresh penalty take that extra damage away. And there it is, 2 straight on, going exactly as planned. Not under cap, but it might just be all there in that cancel. There is no finishing potential anymore in this.
Other Capo player here doesn't have the resources to heal 4. So maybe it is just a 2-turn kill play, milling as much as possible with this climax combo in the background. Maybe without that gold bar trigger, this turn could have been pretty devastating. With that gold bar trigger and a gold bar milled there off the climax combo, maybe it gets a little sketchier.
True. Richard would have to sort of alternate his level of attacks if he so wishes to combo again. He would have to go in first with Otahime and then with his combos in order to pay the stock to generate his effects. So how is he going? He's pulling back.
I think he's scared of overswinging here. I think that might be why our Kappa player has chosen this line, just creating these open slots to try and guarantee some cancel.
There is no combo, so there is no pushing of the extra damage. Once again, triggering when he doesn't really want to, but the free is on. 2 damage separates him and certain victory.
That pullback of the level 3 starting to look really smart. I think clutch cancel.
And it might sadly be all there.
Daylight player
Richard.
doing a little celebration there. You can see he's very glad to have made that cancel.
He is.
As I'm sure anyone would be. He only has to deal 1 damage. His opponent has a full board. All he has to do is crash some 1 soul characters in. Hope that he doesn't trigger. Hope that there aren't 3 climaxes right on top of Richard's deck.
And there it is. Just
the handshake.
The handshake right there. It is all over. And Date Alive has claimed another notch up for the win. Right there. Saying, yes, I just have 3 guys in hand. I can do the damage needed. It's over, sadly.
So, looking back at that match, I think, for one, we can't count Date Alive out. Even with the ban list, there's still depth to this set. Now that it's got its 2nd booster, there's some combos in here that, catching us commentators off guard.
Very true. You do have now access to that ridiculous Toka level combo, which does just proc on the back row, because why not?
The weakness is, a weaker top end.
Very true.
But that's a problem that a lot of other successful decks have had to deal with in the past. Sword Art with Shinon, set one Attack on Titan with no top end whatsoever.
Very true. Though it is quite sad to sort of see the Da Capo ending up as it did. Sadly not being able to get that memory early on and just sort of playing cards but not getting the cards he so wishes.
Yeah, I wonder to what extent the list was built to be low to the ground on memory, or whether Richard just failed to see his cards.
Is quite interesting. We would have to pick the player's brain on that in a certain time when possible. But sadly, we'll have to call it there.
Yeah, we'll take a quick break while pairings go up for the next round. We will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
See you lovelies in a bit.
Alright, welcome back to the UK Open Live. Once again, I am Ewan, joined here by the lovely John. Say hello to the people, John.
Hey, all you peeps out there. Hope you're all good and going.
We have another banger of a matchup prepared for you here. We've got Hololive against the new Idolmaster set. Two decks, if you've been out of the loop for a little bit, you might be completely unfamiliar with what's going on, but don't worry, we're here to guide you through it.
Very true. We'll saltily take you through everything, and it's sort of a nice grudge match between sort of effectively the musical stylings of Idolmaster Shiny Colors versus the VTuber Apocalypse facing him down.
So to quickly glance through the Hololive deck list, we've got an 8-choice list here. So Hololive, it's a brand new set, and there are, I believe, something in the region of 250 cards in this set.
It's a staggering amount of cards in the set.
And because of that, the meta is all over the place. People haven't landed on builds. I've spoken to 10 different people, and I've heard 10 different opinions about what's good, what's bad. So our player Angus here, he's gone with a level 2 combo. There's no change. It's not Summer Pockets. It's just a straight play at level 2.
Oh, wow.
On reverse, choose 2 characters, put them into stock in any order, and then salvage 1.
Sort of a nice throwback to sort of the old sort of Monogatari days, if you so will, of him just sort of effectively getting anything from his waiting room and just jamming it in his stock. A very sort of, a bit, if you've known him for a while, it is very fitting of this player's play style.
Absolutely. And then at level 3, we've got the combo that I think most people are trending towards this being the choice. I know some people are very outspoken against it, but it's the pay 1, drop 1 as many times as you choose, up to 5. And then perform an Icy Tail, so bottom 3 cards of your opponent's deck go into waiting room, and then burn for the number of climaxes there.
Is that the Coco level 3?
I believe
memory
so.
serves? I'm not up to date on the VTubes, but I think I remember that one.
Yeah, so you perform that effect as many times as you pay the cost +1. So you can do it for free, or you could do it 6 times.
And I think we might have to cut the analysis a bit short, but Jamie is on shiny colours, and we're getting all ready. It looks like we're there, ready to go, slamming. So we'll have to sort of analyse Jamie Dello's Idolmaster as we go along.
Yeah, as we go into the game, and it looks like the players are ready here and set up. Tell us a little bit about this Idolmaster set, because I'm familiar with the older Idolmasters, but not this new one, and it's not Neo standard, correct?
It is sort of a jump. Well, I would class Idolmaster sort of like the older sort of sets, like Little Busters and what, as a set mess. It has such a ridiculous amount of stuff it can access itself into, and sort of restrictions that you have to be placed on. It is quite difficult, though. We are seeing sort of our players getting ready. We're dropping 4 from Jamie Dello right there. So I would say I'll have to effectively enlighten you as we go along. Though it is from what I know of Idolmaster Shiny Colors, it is exactly like the VTuber hell. There is so many different variations. I have heard our good old friend Roido-san, fresh from Japan, give me certain analysis of the set, and each time he tells me a different card.
So it's another set with a lot of depth, you would say.
Sometimes there is too much depth. I much prefer the shallower waters. And as we can see here, we're just cranking each other's heads over at this early stage in the game. Angus and there playing. Which VTuber is this one? Is this the nurse one?
I'm afraid I'm not familiar with VTubers' names. You're going to have to bear with us on that.
We might have to come up with our own nicknames for these characters. I believe she's a maid, if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm very, very sorry to all you VTuber fans.
So this Idolmaster Shiny Colors deck, it's an 8 standby list.
Very interesting.
So if you were present for our last game where we were watching a Data Live deck off the beaten track, yeah, this might be more a something more familiar for you. There's all the stuff you would expect from an 8 standby list, a very heavy level 2 presence, for instance. Running the only level 1s in this list are 4 1/1s. So that's kind of exciting. I believe there's a climax at the top end, but there is no early game climax. It's just riding off level 0 value.
Though an interesting thing about shiny colours, it has a ridiculous amount of foils in this set. Like, I'm pretty sure it is almost every card has a foil version. It
Excellent.
It is shiny in every member of the word.
Truly the shiniest colours.
Only the shiniest colours for Jamie Dello right here.
So a pretty fast early game for a standby deck.
Very true.
Trying to like get the damage in early. Of course, the classical weakness of an 8 standby deck, not having access to a global soul, you can fall behind in damage very quickly if you don't get your board set up to tank blows and you're not like dealing an equivalent amount of damage back.
But as we can see, he has got the standard sort of tools you would expect of a standby, being able to look at the top few cards of his deck, figure out what's coming up, rearrange if he so needs be, and sort of also this card allowing him to bounce it back, playing his standby, being able to refresh his field with a nice bigger one if he so wishes. That lovely versatility you do get in standby decks, which I am very much a big fan of. Like the whole, I'm going to replace my board with a bigger board and still retain some nice hand. So we are seeing a nice fast game, a level 1 there from Angus. Does he wish to actually get up to level 2 to play that combo? Or is there a way sort of being able to cheat that combo out at level 1 if so needs be?
There is no change. There's no Summer Pocket style level 1 change into the level 2.
So he is pretty much riding level 0 on 1 as bare as can effectively be.
Funnily enough, it's kind of like the Idolmaster Million.
Oh, the Million Live deck with the event.
Yeah, the 8 Stock Soul list that ran a 2-1 Stock Soul combo in there because you didn't need top end. So that's a ironic comparison point, I suppose. There is a
VTuber. There is Coco. That is the one I know. It is the dragon one. And the maid going in. Then there is more Coco. And I believe this final one is a sheep.
So a huge boon of HoloLive. As much as it's a pain as a commentator to dig through all these cards, we did try our best to memorize as many of them as we could. We did not do a great job of that because there are just so many cards in there and every player is running every single card. But because there are so many cards in there is a relatively high card quality. Everything kind of filters to the top.
Very true. Every deck does feel both unique and quite sort of very decent in its way it wants to do it. There's no sort of bad combinations that you could reasonably roll with the characters that you would enjoy wanting to play. Everything is sort of nice, does what it needs to be doing, and then you can obviously, if needs be, crank into what you would consider your overpowered finisher.
This is a pretty rough position for a standby deck to be in, to have its board completely wiped, because there's no advantage combo in this list as there would be in a more traditional list. He just has to rely on brainstorms, drawing for turn.
Very, very true. This is not what you would want. Not even turn 0 effectively. What you would want in your standbys. He's not really been able to build up a nice big field and crank right into that. He's had to play to a different set of tunes from these VTubers.
One of his level 2s that he's looking for, he gets the stock back when he plays it if there's a full field. So he is trying to build the beefiest board one has ever seen in order to guarantee that that effect goes off.
It's not a bad way to play the game, but and then we see more standbys. Oh, and another standby. Let's see what the bin holds for him. And there it is, right on cue. Oh, my days. It's
a 2-1. We'll tell you that for free.
Very true, but...
Apologies, we've got some back-end technical difficulties here.
What I would say is... Standby, I would say, is a very sort of feast and famine. You don't... Not as with others, you wouldn't want to trigger it. But you would I would say you much more prefer to trigger standby than play it.
Absolutely, because where standby is at its strongest is when it's just pure card advantage. And especially if you don't have that spectacular a board, and you're crashing in, and then you trigger it on attacks 2 or 3, and you standby into front row, all of a sudden you've got a wall up, and your opponent, maybe, if they're planning their turn during your turn, their plans can be thrown off. They have to go, oh wait, I was thinking of taking this line, but all of a sudden the board state's changed. I was looking at empty slots, now I'm looking at beefy 2-1 bodies.
It is a ridiculous sort of play of events. It does sort of, as we were saying in our previous game, it warps your play style. You have to play to a different tune. It's no longer, I'm going to crank level 1 combo against level 1 combo. Suddenly you have these big walls facing you down. You've got to figure out what battles you can take, what ones you can't. Does his bin have access to more big ones that you can call out? What cards are in there that could potentially come out the next turn? So we can see some more delicious VTubers right there.
Oh yeah, so this card is interesting. So on death, you pay 1, you send it to the bottom of clock, and then you look at the top 2 cards and add as many as you want.
Very, very interesting sort of card, that.
It's just strict advantage. I think it's one of the cards that's absolutely kind of creme de la creme of the set. Nearly every player's looked at it and gone, this is a +2. it's very good.
Very true, and being able to that additional look as well does allow him. Ooh, this set does indeed look very, very nice. As you can see from all these recent sets, the card art is absolutely fabulous. And in fact, something I was actually quite taken aback for a VTuber set, if I'm not entirely honest with you, because when I did indeed hear HoloLive, I thought, oh god, it would just be screen grabs of the models. But they've actually gone really all nice and deep and gotten some really fantastic art. And if I so, it's the Coco is the dog, if I remember right.
Coronet.
Coronet. Oh,
I believe. Okay, so these green 2-1s in the background, they're a global 1k to music trait, so they're making those 1-1s in the front even bigger. And then they can change into another 2-1, which is the on-place clean stock. So if you change in there, you don't have to pay the stock to play it to stage. You get that stock for free.
Oh my days.
So it's a pretty neat advantage engine.
Indeed. Well, we can see sort of Angus just having to sort of play his usual tune. Doesn't really want to be doing much of this, but what does one answer against such a big level board? You've just got to try and deal as much damage. Effectively, the damage race is on.
Yeah, is the easiest thing to do against standby is just to try and maintain a damage advantage. It's not the easiest, to do all the time, especially because, you know, as you're crashing, you're opening up lanes. They're generating a soul advantage on you that way. But, you know, sometimes it's just got to be done.
Indeed, sometimes it just has to be that.
I mean, yeah, it's tough because the standby player, having cancelled this much, that's exactly where they want to be. They want to have this damage advantage because in addition to the board advantage, is just crippling. And all of a sudden, you're relying on your endgame to catch you back up as opposed to confirm a kill.
Very, very true. Jamie now has access to nice level 3s if he so hits a standby trigger or plays a standby.
Yeah, so here's the change and there's the clean start. I think he only had one in waiting room and that's why he's only going for one change here. So a little bit of rough variance there, if that's the case. But he still has the global 1k in back, which is not a redundant effect at all in a deck like this.
There it is, just all lovely clean stock coming straight out of Jamie. Right there is absolutely glorious to see. And of course, he's cranked, well, Angus up quite high in level 2. So we can see Angus not really feeling the bit of the jitters right there. Oh, and he's all the way up to level 3.
Standby with the level advantage is crazy. That's a real deficit.
This is a very, very high wall Angus now has to go up against. He is a whole level behind. No, but the door's not completely closed yet. He's got a nice healthy amount of stock.
Not. We're still playing Weiss Schwarz here. Let's not forget. But especially, I do think that Hololive's weakness is in its finisher lineup. This finisher in particular doesn't have a ton of reach. It's just a lot of instances, and it's not cheap to get numerous instances either. So it's not a great catch-up mechanic. Definitely can't kill from 2-0. I don't think many finishers in the game can, but this one definitely cannot.
It would be quite the miracle if he indeed could catch up that hard, that fast. Just absolutely crushing this advantage. Jamie's this is almost his game to lose. There he's just grabbing the combo. Is he pulling the trigger this turn? Is he going for the Coco?
It is. You can choose to pay the cost 0 times and just get one instance for free, which might not be a bad line here, just to try and eke out a little bit of advantage.
But there is. In fact, he's closed off his stock now. He cannot go for the Coco turn.
That is an early play that's just being played down at level 3.
You hate to see it sometimes, or sometimes you'd. Oh, but then again, it is a heal to stock, so he's still there. He is Coco on the go-go.
Yeah, I wonder if
do it.
He should be able to reverse this 1-1 lane, at the very least. I think the side lanes might be more of a challenge.
And there it is. She is down. The Dragon Mistress has claimed her stage. We are just facing off. I would be quite surprised if Angus's board could not really reverse much of Jamie's. As powerful as his standby field is, and it is glorious, it still has only a certain amount of reach of power.
So this Hololive finishes effect goes off. You pay the cost on reverse. So if he swings with it last, he could still pay for it 3 times and therefore use 4 instances if he really wanted to. I think unless all of these attacks stick, that's probably a stretch.
Very true, but he does also have to reverse. So if in some way Jamie's able to remove that target through either a counter or anything, or any such means, then the combo effectively just fails dead, and it's just a vanilla attack. But I'm pretty sure he is not running any such counters. We've definitely not seen any come up. But there it is, just one Coco though.
This is a very tense late game shuffle. This game has gone blisteringly quickly, I have to say.
Very true. It's sort of what I would consider the The archetypical, if your standby goes well, this is the game you want to play.
Absolutely. Aspiring standby players, maybe take some shuffling notes from this game.
Very, very true. Shuffle those climaxes hard and well. And there it is, the board is just gone, but there is just no damage. Angus has indeed just bought a wet flannel to a fight and just tickled Jamie slightly there.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about standby is generally these lists don't have that explosive a finish either. So they're quite happy to just be stuck on level 2 and just a vibe.
Very, very trees. This is everything Jamie wants and more. He has an extra turn at level 2. He doesn't need to push much further. He has got his opponent to level 3. All he needs to do is just keep doing his usual turns.
So I assume this is a pay 1 and then resonate top 3 add 1. So it's a good effect if you know Union from Konosuba. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. There have been discussions about that card since its release.
It is a very good card, and if you are able to fit such engines in your decks, I would consider it, especially on decks such as 8 standby, where you really need to just keep your resources flowing. It does allow you to keep that hand up.
Look at this double change with the double clean stock. So even having used all of those resources this turn, it's just right back there and it's all clean.
It is absolutely horrible. This is really unfair. Jamie just taking everything from poor Angus, and then some. Ooh, but then again, he may be down, but he is not out.
Wonder if he went for the tie there to try and deny a reverse next turn. And that might be why he's standbying into back row instead of over the top of that reverse card.
Very true. Denying those reverse targets if Angus does indeed play another Coco down.
Yeah, this change engine is really cool.
It's ridiculously efficient.
It is funny seeing green in Idol Masters as well, if you're an old head.
There we are, just more standby, just coming down.
This could be a pretty swing turn though, triggering 2 standbys there. He might leave his deck quite in quite an exposed state. This could be a big catch-up turn.
Very true, but as exposed as he is, he's still on a comfortable 2-3 right there. Though he hasn't managed to really crack Angus all that hard. He's stayed nice and comfortable at level 3. And do we see another turn of the Coco? Or does he have access to any additional tricks, anything at all? He must be thinking, I'm at this quite precarious state. I've got to find something, the right combination.
That is one thing that some top players have really enjoyed about the Coco top end, is you only need to field one of it. Because you can pay for the effect as many times. You're not trying to try field it as a lot of other finishes you are. So yeah, some of the more pessimistic players are saying like, oh, that means you can play some of the actually good level 3s in those lanes. But the more positively inclined will say like, it gives you more options. It gives you the room to go for 2-turn kills like this.
Very true. And there we see him grabbing the Coco back. So he only has to put that one in a lane and just reverse it. But what other tricks does he effectively want to couple it with? There we are.
I think he's choosing to hold that Coco back for next turn. I think that's foil variant of a different card.
I would say that's a quite ambitious.
That's a stock swap there. Considering there were 2 standbys in Jamie's stock there, I don't know how worthwhile that really was.
True. It is sort of a usual sort of pitfall, I would say, where you're blinded by the stock flush. Like, my opponent has stock. Let's just flush that.
I guess Jamie's wasn't close to refresh, so those 2 climaxes being there wasn't worth the time. Maybe he's just trying to get the guaranteed refresh point in.
And there we are, just climaxes bleeding left, right, and centre from both of these players. Very, very ambitious turn, I would say, from Angus. Choosing this line of play rather than the Coco. Maybe even potentially saying like, I've got a turn to live.
Double trigger there.
And even still, through that stock flush, they're still finding these standby
I've never
cancels.
seen so many climaxes in a single turn. This is madness.
Oh, are we certain even there is 8 climaxes in that deck? Are we certain Jamie has not put extra in there?
Should we summon a judge?
Of course, I'm joking. We have checked all our players' deck lists, so don't you worry, chat.
So that's some incredible cancelling from our idol master player here. He might not see level 3 before the end of the game.
Still, he's so low on level 2. This is ridiculous. This is almost death by 1,000 cuts to Hololive.
I am glad that both of our players have decided to start cancelling though, because it means I get to share some more time with my co-commentator, John.
Oh, very true. It is a lovely, lovely day here in Coville. Oh, it's slightly bit overcast, but hey, it ain't raining. So, in England, we consider that a success.
Absolutely. And yeah, what better use of the weather than staying inside and playing some anime card games?
I would consider it no greater fun than being inside and playing card games. And looking a bit thin there from Jamie, having to clock himself up to actually get himself, which is sort of what I would consider a usual pitfall in standby. Well, you can get a nice big old field, but if your field does get wiped, you have to then sort of clumber around with whatever you've got in hand to sort of try and piece it back together.
For sure. I think back when I played standby, it was in the old days with like 7 Bang Dream, and I found myself clocking every single turn. If you chose a turn not to clock, it would be because you're on 3-6 and you would lose. Besides that, you kind of had to clock, even if it felt janky, even if it means, as it does here, that, you know, your change targets in waiting room get shuffled in, you don't have the clean stock there for them potentially. That's just a risk that you have to take because you need the cards in hand to put forward a board.
So how Jamie is pushing forward, he already knows what those 2 cards he is looking at due to his effects. So he hasn't chosen to rearrange. They're blank there as is, so he must have been happy with what he saw.
This is a huge weakness of standby though, because nearly any other deck would be able to play a 1k1 hit, and it would be a finishing turn, you know?
There it is, the sad standby, no targets available.
Just nibbling away at that life total.
Very, very true. Because at any point, Angus only has a certain amount of heals in his deck he has access to. He will run out eventually.
Okay, our Hololive player here has said this is the time that it is do or die. Having clocked there, he's very much resigned to that, saying, okay, it's now or never. I can't keep sitting here hoping that my opponent swings for 1/1/1 and I cancel 2.
Very true. He has to do something effectively this turn, I would say. There it is, the combo once again, and there is 1 target there for the reverse.
Oh, cancel. Oh. The perfect cancels on the perfect numbers.
But even still, Jamie is just saying, no, none of that here. This is not how we operate in Standbyville.
Okay, that 3 sticks. And now, how many times is he going to choose to use the combo? All 5 times. 6 instances of this Icy Tail effect.
We are going very, very deep.
Here we go. Nothing on the first one.
And then, second one, we have 1.
Burns for 1, that sticks.
And there's another one.
And that pings off the top. Nothing on the 4th.
The
Nothing
fifth?
on the 5th? One more? Players confirming that it is X+1.
And there it is, one. Last one.
So I believe those go back in because it just puts them straight into a waiting room.
Yes,
So he will. Does the burn come first here or does the refresh? I think it's the burn,
He would
right?
have to. If my judge ruling is remember, he has to finish the effect first before he takes his compulsory damage.
Yeah, I believe that is the case. Again, we're not judges. We're just players, lovers of the game.
Very true. So if you are aware of the actual judge ruling, please don't shout too hard in the chat.
Either way, though, there is a lethal swing set up on the board already.
Very true. If this all hits as it should do, we do see we could potentially see Jamie going up to 3-4, and 3 damage could seal the thing. And it is.
Oh,
And it was
in the perfect order.
Oh,
This is
my
going to be an
goodness.
overswing now, though, I believe, for 4.
But can he do it? 3, 1. Oh, and
It's
that was
incredible.
it. We have gone from Jamie being in the driving seat that entire game.
Oh no, look at this shuffle.
Oh, look at the compression once again, like in our first game, becoming a lie.
What an incredible game.
It was staggering. Like, we saw that very rushed early game from both players, and then just sort of grinding us bit to the end. Angus sort of teetering on the verge of death for a good few turns, and Jamie sort of not being able to sort of deliver that hammer blow.
I'm so impressed by that finishing combo. I think that's it. Maybe if you wrote it off, if you think it's a little gimmicky, a little cheesy, give it a second look. Look how great it was.
It was a
It was like a double Cococino on one card. It's incredible.
What he has obviously been able to save in room space for others, he has vastly capitalized on that Coco finish, and now sealed him that victory right there.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for these games. We're gonna go to a lunch break. We'll be back in 45 minutes, an hour or so. So slip us over to your second monitor. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back sooner than you think.
Yeah. You guys go have a nice sandwich. We'll see you in a bit. Can we have a sec? Will we know more?
Why Schwarz? Hello and welcome back to the UK Open. My name's Liam and I'm one of the organisers of today's event. And I just wanted to take a moment to first of all thank every viewer who's been watching us today. We really appreciated the interaction on chat. We hope that you've had a great time listening and watching the event so far. Just want to take a few moments just to say our thank yous for today's event. Firstly, to our venue. We've got the West End in Colville. They've got a fantastic venue. Pictures will be coming up soon. And obviously, as you've seen our social media, you will see, how great this venue is for how we got. Secondly, want to say thank you to our lead sponsors, Top Deck In. They are a game shop based in Milton Keynes who basically supported us throughout the entire event. It also has a shopping store as well as providing a good chunk of our price support today. Thirdly, we've got Blackfire EU. Basically, they have also provided some fantastic price support for the event today. So that's been really great from them. And then finally, a big thank you to our players as well. We've had 39 players come in with a load of different varieties of decks, which is shown on the stream. You've seen, I think we've not had a single deck of the same set so far. So we've got a real fantastic variety. So yeah, really big thank you to our players today. But that's pretty much it, I think. We are pretty much getting ready to go into round 4 now. We've still got 3 more rounds of Swiss before we move into our X2 top cut. But on that note, I would love to pass you over back to our commentators, Ewan and John. Ewan.
All right, thank you very much, Liam. And yeah, once again, thanks to everyone who's made this event happen. It's been great so far. We've got some more great games coming. So, John, you've got a piece of paper in front of you there. It's got some numbers on it. Talk to me about those numbers. Tell me about those numbers. What's with all the numbers?
So, as you all know, we've reached round 3. Well, going into round 4. So we've had 3 rounds of Swiss so far. So, as currently we stand, we have 5 players out of our big batch of 39 that are currently undefeated. So they have not dropped a single game in these 3 rounds. And they are pretty hot stuff. Like, I'm looking at these names, and some pretty good names in there. I'm not going to spoil it for the chat. It's going to be a nice little surprise for you right there. And then all we got is how many we got in the second bracket. So ones that they've dropped a game, but they're still within the running. So it's a big old. Are you waiting for it? 14 players. They have only dropped 1 game, so they still have 1 game they can effectively lose in the bag, and they can still make that good old top cut.
So the great thing about this event today, we've chosen a tournament structure that allows every player who loses only 2 games goes through to top cut. There's no bubbles here. Everyone's been at the locals. They've been the 9th place player who went 3-2 just because their resistance went wrong. None of that's happening today. Every single player who goes X2 is going to make top cut.
And speaking of the X2s, so our 1-2 players sit at a massive 16. So they're on the edge. It's pretty much, if they continue to win from this point on, they can still make top cut. But it is, I'm not going to lie, it's a bit apprehensive. You don't really want to be in that point. But it's good to know the door is still open to make the top.
Still a wide open field. Yeah, I mean, and besides that, there's so much deck variety here today. I think we've got 1 series represented 3 times. We've got Zombieland Saga represented 3 times and Data Live represented 3 times. Zombieland Saga, I'm honestly amazed that people got it in the post in time.
Is quite impressive. Like, this is a very recent set, and there is still 3 people that have managed to turn up with it complete, ready to roll, ready to crack out.
And besides that, it's 2-1 across the board. Ton of variety, wide open field. We've been lucky enough not to repeat a series so far. Hopefully that streak continues well into Top Cut. We'll keep giving you some exciting games. We'll keep testing our skills as a commentary team.
Aye, we will. We are good old ready to go. And, well, not ready to go just yet on the stream, but as a commentating powerhouse, we are there, ready. And we will be starting round 4 in a very, very short time. So keep your hands firmly away from that good old cross in the top.
This
As
is
we are there.
Yeah. This is your last chance as they